Hello, my friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
It's really great to see you guys having so much fun in the chat room with Miss Nicole and Scratch and Karma Doc and Penny Love Dance. Hi.
Nuke's stirring the pot as usual, and he is live.
Swatting the hornet's nest, stirring the pot.
Yeah, Scratch admits Pew and Scratch are quite the ticket. Very interesting one. Definitely keeping everybody entertained.
We like that. Thanks, you guys. Thank you.
So this is going to be a interesting one. The Earth changes obviously have been ramping up for a long time, and especially if we go back to like 2017, for instance, as we've talked about many times. Lots of interesting stuff going on right now. Had a hard choice deciding what to go live on. I was going to just do an Earth change video, but the more I got looking at it, it's just that there's a lot of stuff here. And then, of course, there's a lot of stuff that we could cover with, all the news that's breaking, everything else that's going on. We're on a roller coaster ride, and, we thought we had maybe that first hill. That was a pretty damn big one that we just came crashing down on, and now we're looking up and we're seeing one that's even bigger.
Yeah, those rickety old roller coasters where you're just
Those are my favorites.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, they're wonderful. They are.
I like the old wooden ones that make a ton of noise.
Yes, there's one of those in Santa Cruz. They're awesome.
Awesome. Knowledge 2020 in the house. Good to see you. Good to see Kim Miller. Kenny Crowder, always good to see you as well. Listen for Vision. Happy 4th. Queen Star Sophia. Fatonia. 222 Mission. Good to see you.
It's great to see you guys. And everybody's already in such a great mood. I can feel the vibe in there. It just feels awesome.
Awesome is good. I hope everybody had a great day. Hope you enjoyed yourselves. I hope you were able to enjoy a holiday in a way that maybe we used to enjoy them with before we had to mask up and all that.
Yeah, I know. Isn't that sad? Like, I just don't enjoy going out. It doesn't make any sense. Whatever they're doing, they're not being truthful in the reason behind why they're doing it, because it doesn't make sense. So yeah.
Jeremiah said, I heard this is where all the sane ones are. Well, you might not want to read some of the comments. Oh, just kidding. Just kidding. We have fun. That's what we do. And Stephen over in Belgium, good to see you as well. Jeff, good to see you, brother. Mercy Anonymous, good to see you, sister. Nathan C., good to see you, brother.
It's great to see you guys. There's Miss Elena and Nuclear Quantum Lasers. Pew, pew, pew. I think you need a few more words on that name. I want to see if it can run 2 rows.
Right. So Elena's over in Waynesville. And, I was going to say, well, would you stop over at Boojum's for me and bring some of their brown ale?
Yes.
Because, I know Nuke's running low.
Yes, we want it in a big bucket.
Penny Love Dance, good to see you, as well as Greta and Paul. Christine MacArthur. Yes, it is fun to be a little insane at sometimes, or at least silly.
It is. I mean, we have to be like children. We can learn so much from children. And if you forgot how to play, just go to any school, any little kindergarten playground. Watch those kids play, and you'll remember. It'll come right back to you.
Definitely. Mr. Mission Control, happy Independence Day as well. Raven's in the house. Superwoman, we got Superwoman in here as well. Wad Girl, hello over in Colorado Springs.
It's great to see you guys. There's Miss Nicole and Raven and yep. Filling up casual preparedness. Hello.
Please do send a picture of that painting, Mercy. We'd love to see it as well. Glad you liked that. I enjoy those a lot. And we were going to do a totally different topic until I started checking things and seeing what's going on. So one of the things I wanted to just start with and show you guys, something I had in a video from a couple years ago. And how do you explain like that? And this is from Google Earth. And this is on the bottom of the ocean. nature doesn't usually make such straight lines. I see all these straight lines, and I don't really think it's just, them splicing photos together either. It looks to be a structure.
It's weird.
And as you see over here, you see Cocos Island National Park. I always found some of the things we see highly unusual on, the bed of the ocean. And people have said before, when you look at the Earth change maps, I just have a hard time. I don't know how many times I've heard people say this. I just have a hard time believing that, say Nevada or Utah could be totally underwater. But, the processes of the Earth and what it goes through these periodic cycles, they might not be exactly timeline-wise what we've been taught in school. This is just a very curious structure down here, and I got to wonder what's up with that. There's a lot of other things, and I know Mr. MBB and Florida Marquis have brought up some interesting structures that are under the ocean. And this brings us to what we're seeing today. If we look at Casey's prophecies as well as Nostradamus, they both said basically that some lands that were, for instance, places of major battles will be right at the bottom of oceans in the future.
Which is really interesting, because we keep running into things, we keep digging up old sites, and it's just really awesome.
Yeah, I've pointed this out before because this line is a plume. So there is basically a place that the magma is coming up and creating these islands. And when we see this turn, and this is the same plume, to me that says that the Earth did a loop-de-loop. It looks like it's about 110 degrees. It's a little bit more than a 90-degree turn. And, I've heard others that agree too and think that this is perhaps evidence of the crust shifting because the plume stays in place. And it's the same thing with Yellowstone too, because Yellowstone, well, the supervolcano, as we know, is now centered. Here we go, looking for Montana and Wyoming, over Montana and Wyoming. But originally, it was over in Oregon when the first major eruption came out. So again, things are a little more fluid. I think that there's a lot of evidence that things can change very, very quickly.
Oh my gosh, yes. And there's layers of change too. How they dig up things. What was that? Oh my gosh, I forgot the most recent name of it right now, but they just dug up something and they showed like bricks, like modern day bricks and stuff. That was really interesting.
And as we said, it's not just the Bible with flood stories. Nearly every single culture around the world talks about a global flood. And so, scientists have, tried to make it out like, well, they're all talking about different localized floods that happened over time. Of course, we have the Younger Dryas period, which, could have, with a major impact, caused some major flooding in certain areas. And you got to wonder, how often does this happen too? Because, apparently there's been some pretty good flooding, say like around 5500 BC, but also, around 11,000 years ago as well, major events. And what we're looking at now going on is pretty wild. As you see here, high tides flood California coastline. It's not storms. It's not rain. And, of course, we have a full moon and an eclipse, right? And, eclipses are often harbingers of big omens. Change,
Emotional change. Yeah, lots of interesting stuff behind eclipses.
So the flooding that we're seeing, as you see here over the Weather Channel, high tide, large waves push water into streets in Newport Beach, California. Some pretty expensive real estate getting flooded out right there. And, we've talked about king tides, and they are increasing. The last time I was in Charleston, South Carolina, a couple years back. It was just enjoying myself like it's one of my favorite cities, talking to a gentleman in a restaurant who had lived there his whole life, and he was talking about the flooding that has gotten much, much worse in recent years. Much, much worse than what they've seen. And of course, we have seen an increase in the storms. The storm intensity is getting stronger. We know there's more moisture out there. The volcanoes are very, very active, throwing particulates into the air. All these things are adding up. And there's some other processes that might be contributing a major portion to this as well.
There could be things that we haven't been told about. Once again, it's just our history is secret.
I'm going to quiet that. But here you could take a look at people just going around and just kind of enjoying the unusual high tides, pretty wild stuff. But you should be careful too, because we've seen rogue waves, and especially up in Oregon and Washington, they get a lot of rogue waves over in that area. And we've seen meteor tsunamis too that are wind-driven events. Here you see a post from Conscious Evolution. Climate change in California. Yes, yeah, as it goes into other things. They just got flooded from ocean swells. And this one says, flooding clearly due to Arctic and Antarctic melt. And, there are people that will disagree with that and say, no, that's not it. But, there's a lot of things going on right now to contribute. And, while I'm thinking about this, there's one thing I missed that I want to pull up.
Yeah, it's just the world that we live in has never been so mysterious. We have all these records being broken every day. Records of like, this and this hasn't happened in 100 years. So they're pretty big records being broken left and right.
And here is Arctic sea ice volume, total volume. And our year is 2020. So it's the black line. So it is, the lowest amount of Arctic sea ice total volume, which is your expanse and your depth that we've seen going back to 2004. So this has continued for quite a bit. It started to go up. And as we see here, 2019 was looking like, wow, okay, it's starting to build, but then it dropped. And, it stayed down now. So, as far as the total amount of Arctic sea ice, it is low, and it is at a lower point than what it's been in going back to 2004 anyway. And of course, there's so many cycles within cycles. So here we have some more footage in Newport. Look, and the comment there is, this is not normal.
No, that's not normal at all. This is really insane, and I'm wondering if these properties are going to be useful.
Well, damage for sure. And, you were talking about insurance, and, if you look at flood insurance, that's a huge thing. Yeah. When I was looking in Florida, there was one house that was an unbelievable value. It was dirt cheap. And it would have been a project, but I really was sold on it. And then found that it would have to be lifted 10, 12 feet in order to get just, insurance coverage, or to be able to take a loan out for it too. So it made it just an impossibility. So many people are going to be basically faced with the same sort of things of not being able to sell their homes if they want to get out of it, because the cost of somebody going and putting insurance on it, if they're able to get insurance, and if they can't get insurance, then they can't get a mortgage, and it's a cycle, and it's going to be some of the challenges that we're facing moving forward, because you're going to have people that are realizing, this once in 100 or 1,000 year flood might be happening every year now, or multiple times. This isn't a good situation. What are we going to do?
Oh, I know. I think where was it? Was it in Italy where they had the flooding and they just finally resolved to decide they couldn't do anything about it? I'm curious to see if that's going to be this way here too.
As you see, more and more photos of this flooding that we see in Newport Beach. Look at everybody going and buying their bikes. As we said before, you're going to need a boat to get around. Streets and parking lots in Newport Beach, California, flooding with knee-high water as the tide surges inland under a high surf advisory. And that's exactly what we were looking at. And here's the remains of a sailboat in Newport Beach, destroyed by a combination of high tide and flooding and trashed.
That's really, really sad. So sad.
And as you see, more and more flooding going on. It's not just Newport Beach, though. There's other areas, but just the California, being so close to home here. And you see a cleanup underway. And we look over in Wales. We go across the pond. Major flooding after torrential rain here. So this wasn't just tides. This was the rain, which we've seen a ton of that.
That's just incredible. This is shocking.
So this is a hotel which dates back to the 1800s, and then there's a castle, and partially underwater. How about this guy? He's just hanging out waiting for the bus. He's just so patient. Look at that. Just chest high in water.
Waiting for his bus, and he knows it's going to show up.
This is Wuhan. Wow. And over here, just to let you guys know, we've talked about locusts. Well, this is locust in China, plaguing China's crops. And all these things are adding up to, two things in particular. More and more crop loss, eventually going to lead to probably wars, as countries are going to be trying to secure what they can for their people so that the leadership could stay in power and not be overthrown.
Yeah, definitely. There's just so much going on. This is really, really crazy with these floodwaters. And look at those yuck bugs. Ew.
Yeah, we talked about locusts, these big plagues of locusts, which are everywhere. When you get down to it, we're first watching Africa, and then seeing them make their way into the Middle East, and they're in China as well. And they're down in South America and making their way into North America. And, some had even said, what are they doing? Are they making them in labs and then releasing them from the planes? How did they just show up at the most wrong time?
Maybe they came from inner Earth.
There you go. Well, yeah, Inner Earth, we're going to talk about that too. So this one I wanted to hold off a little bit on, but this is really interesting stuff too. As you see, new evidence, breaking news. This person has discussed enormous evidence for the 5525 BC flooding and destruction of Krishna's Dwarka before. New evidence from Australia points to the same timeline. Massive and sudden sea level rise.
Which is, again, this is just insane.
And, you have Aboriginal sites underwater. And they have found artifacts off the seabed off of Australia, opening a door to discovery of ancient settlements flooded since the last ice age, they reported. Now, that's an obvious one, that when we end an ice age, we start coming out of it, the ice melts, water goes up. But there could be more things going on as well, more processes that the Earth goes through just naturally. And of course, we have so much more going on right now. We have a grand solar minimum, and we have a magnetic pole reversal underway. It might not be become a full reversal. It could end up just being an excursion. But that in itself is very, very interesting because, as we've said so many times, magnetosphere declines, which it is, and that allows more cosmic rays in, which affects the entire planet, including the core. And perhaps there's some changes made to the core, which ends up affecting all of us on the surface, or at least trying to stay above water.
Yeah, well, somewhere, in some place, somewhere, somehow, I feel all of these changes are documented, and on some level, someone knows what's going on. It would just be nice if they could clue us in.
So hundreds of ancient stone tools made by Australia's indigenous people at least 7,000 years ago were discovered 2 meters underwater off the remote Western Australia coast. A second site nearby revealed traces of human activity 14 meters below sea level, dating back at least 8,500 years, though researchers believe both sites may be more ancient than that. Archaeologists say the finds mark an exciting first step in uncovering more Aboriginal sites thought to have been flooded since the last ice age between 18,000 and 8,000 years ago. So, Flinders University Associate Professor Jonathan Benjamin, who co-authored the study, said sea level rises covered more than 30% of the vast continent in water. A huge amount of archaeological evidence documenting the lives of Aboriginal people is now underwater. I wonder just, how much of our history is underwater. We've talked about Atlantis and Lemuria. You got to wonder, how many times do we go through all this, and how long have people been here? There's artifacts that go back millions of years that are manufactured, like metal spheres. They have no clue how they got there, and they're like 2 million years old. How long have we been doing this, or if not us, other intelligent beings?
It's really curious. We don't know. And since we've only explored such a sliver of a percentage of the ocean, we don't really know what's out there.
So archaeologists have found Aboriginal sites in inland Australia dating back at least 65,000 years. So, back in that time period, there were Denisovans roaming, there was Neanderthals, there were Cro-Magnons roaming, a lot of different humanoid species. The little hobbits that we found are real. They were only like 2.5 to 3 feet tall, but completely human, So, interesting stuff that we keep uncovering here. And Japan has some serious flooding going on too. The photos over here are actually quite a bit worse than what we see in California. 1 dead, 15 feared dead, 9 missing, and rain and floods in southwestern Japan. As we see, look at, they're on the roof, just trying to wave people down. It's crazy. And this is just happening. Again, finding refuge on top of the roof. That's some serious flooding going on. And we can see some other videos of this area, Kumamoto Prefecture. Look at that. It's a river going down the street.
That's frightening. That is so frightening. If I was there, I would just vomit. I would.
Yeah, I mean, it could definitely get you, scared for sure if you're right in the middle of it. And here's some photos of this flooding. Massive. And we've seen flooding like this, over at the Three Gorges Dam area. And, we're unsure of how much of it is just the Chinese government letting stuff go without telling people, which they have a history of doing, it seems. So, this is Lori Garrett. She's saying heat in the Arctic is breaking records. Temps of 100 degrees in Siberia. It's kind of crazy. And you see flows of melting ice are clogging rivers, flooding cities. Much of Siberia is in flames. And you see it's just crazy, these temperatures. 40 degrees above average. So is that part of what we're going to see going on? And just so you guys know, scattered severe thunderstorms capable of producing damaging winds and large hail will be possible across portions of the northern plains on Sunday. Excessive rainfall could lead to flash flooding across the Dakotas and into northwestern Minnesota as well. And then we get into a little bit more of, exactly what is really going on here on the bigger scale. So we have seen a lot of swarming, and this is talking about a strange swarm of more than 22,000 quakes that rattled South California for the last 4 years. Scientists finally know why. You don't want to know why?
Why?
What do you think they think? Take a guess.
Well, I'm just not sure.
Okay. Well, they think it might be due to underground water.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, underground water. And nope, not like the type that they do with fracking, not injections from above, but perhaps water coming from within, outwards.
Yeah.
So that is interesting in and of itself. I find that fascinating because it ties in with so much of the other stuff we've been talking about. There's a lot of other discoveries. For instance, this Earth's underground oceans. I mean, it's recently come out, depending on who you're listening to, that there is 2 to 3 times as much water underneath the surface, underneath the crust, than there is in the oceans themselves.
That's really curious. And, it just seems like they should have told us this a little sooner. I wonder, oh my, who is this? Mickey the Ironworker, thank you. OMG, all these floods are going to freeze everything in winter. It might. Yeah, thanks for your support.
Thank you so much, Mickey. We appreciate it. It's fascinating because the water stored in the inner layers of the earth may be vastly more plentiful than what's in the oceans. And there's always been the thought, and I always thought, this is just from the science we were brought up with, that perhaps it was a comet impact that brought water to the planet when the planet was forming. Yet there seems to be a lot of water produced just by the natural processes that go on, deep inside the core and the mantle. And the H2O is a byproduct of the processes that go on inside the planet. And then it builds up. And then perhaps when we have these time periods when the magnetosphere is in decline, and we know we're all getting bombarded with more cosmic rays, more neutrinos, the neutrinos and the cosmic energy that's coming in, perhaps that causes like a speeding up of that process within the earth, and the water makes its way up towards the surface. And as it's making its way up towards the surface, like when we look at this article, it can cause a lot of issues in many, many ways. So yeah, 22,000 quakes in the last 4 years. And we've seen some really unusual flurries of, swarms of quakes lately. The ongoing one over just west of Tonopah in Nevada, and of course China Lake ongoing. We've seen swarm activity over there in Idaho, and then in the Salt Lake area as well. So the intimate picture of the swarm's progression suggests that a cluster of quakes was triggered by fluids being naturally injected into the fault system. So it hints that fluids may play a role in other swarms detected around the world. So pretty interesting stuff. And we'll pull up the USGS while we're thinking of it. And let me just change the view. Yeah, and here's one. And every now and then we get some weird ones. This 2.1 up in Harrison, Maine. Of course, Oklahoma's always got some. So this was the area that we were talking about in Idaho. There's just 2 there right now, but it's consistent. Nothing going on right now around Salt Lake. Although we do see, this is what we were talking about. And we had that big one up there. And Cindy and I felt that one. And then we also felt the one that came over here. Very different too. Because when this big one came, it was like a rocking back and forth. And then when this one, it was more like you were getting lifted up and pushed down. They had a very, very different feel to them. And I've been watching this area. This calmed down. There was about 11 over there in a 24-hour period this morning. So I was just wondering if this is going to continue to move south, eventually triggering something, because you do have the potential for a mid-7 in the Vegas area. Just so you do know it, that can happen. And then over here by Mono Lake, we still have some swarming going on as well. What's going on inside the Earth? You know, and the cosmic rays that are triggering all these things as well. Interesting stuff. It really, really is. You know, and cosmic rays definitely affect the sun and the Earth's core as well. So we got a lot of stuff going on. It's kind of all intertwined.
Well, and it affects our bodies too. And it changes us. It turns us into different entities. And we've been taught things about our bodies that probably are not very true. You know, I mean, we've been taught what they want us to know and what they want us to believe, so that we are like really good batteries for their system. Knowing that, we need to keep in mind and keep our minds flexible to relearn or unlearn information so that we can move forward in the new world, because I feel like this world is definitely changing. It's transforming. It's a really beautiful thing. You know, there might be some things that are a bit scary, but you know, it's all very interesting to watch. I think now is a really good time to journal about the different changes going on.
Yeah, definitely. It's pretty fascinating stuff. As Ray Ray says, he almost burned the ranch down today.
Oh boy.
Thank God you didn't.
Yeah.
You know, and Ricky has talked to me about this before, because she's had visions too of what's going on. You know, and for Nevada, for instance, Nevada's being stretched. It's being stretched, and the crust is getting thinner and thinner. And not just Nevada, but over into Utah as well. There's major changes underfoot. And when you see these swarms, you know, I got to wonder, you know, is this where the crust is getting so thin now that perhaps water is making its way up and giving us these swarms? And does that mean at some point, you know, we'll have a major volcanic event over here as well? You know, perhaps I do feel it's coming. And, you know, I remember when you shared that dream with me, you said, oh, geez, I had a dream there was a volcanic eruption like over at your mother's, and people were putting out fires from it, starting fires, you know, like watering down their roofs and stuff. Yeah, you know, all interesting stuff to be sure. And, you know, we're going to see some massive changes. I really do feel like 2021 is just going to be like, you know, we've been cruising at maybe 80, and all of a sudden you're going to peg it, you know, and you have like 500 horsepower or better, and you're going to find yourself doing 140 really quick. Mm-hmm. I do think it's going to accelerate. It seems like it's accelerating. Massive landslide over here. This is in Peru. Creates a natural dam. We've seen so many landslides. Of course, you know, if you're in these type of areas and the ground gets saturated, especially like Peru, again, beautiful country. It's on my bucket list. It really is on my bucket list. I would love to see Peru, especially, you know, the area around Nazca, and there's just so much to see with that hidden history there. A lot of UFO activities, legends of inner Earth beings. I mean, Peru's fascinating. But again, it's a very, very active place too, and you can get really big earthquakes there as well. And so, you know, we're talking about all the stuff going on inside the Earth and the processes. So it made me think about this, and they're still talking about this. You got all these people going to this one area in China with mysterious sounds. People are thinking they're hearing a dragon awaken from inside the Earth. Dragons growling from inside. What are they hearing? You know, and this one, I'll let you guys play just because, you know, before I've ended up getting a copyright strike from stuff that was on Strange Sounds before. It's a weird sound, and people are flocking there in big numbers to just listen. They got their phones out, and they're just, you could tell they're scratching their heads saying, what is this sound? Well, I mean, maybe it's really something going on, again, with the processes in the earth. And maybe there's going to be something big going on there, like, massive quake, or maybe some volcanic activity.
Or maybe there's a crack in the dome and we can hear the sounds. Who knows what it is? It could be really interesting. And I guess we don't really know until we know. And it's going to be fun. And, Chinese villagers find a mysterious 60-foot dragon skeleton. I don't know. I haven't really looked at that. But that's pretty exciting. Maybe that's the baby. Maybe that's the baby of the mommy dragon that's making noises. Maybe she's angry because she can't find her baby. So who knows what's going on there. We just definitely know there's changes that we haven't really witnessed before, things going on that aren't really explainable. And it's a really fun time to be alive.
Yeah, some good comments. Mary Davidson's watching Jupiter ascending, 45 minutes in so far. Love it. It's pretty cool. And the depiction of the Draco and the depiction of the Greys were eerily good and pretty wild. It's a good movie to check out. Yeah, you got to wonder, inner Earth? Because, I do believe there's inner Earth civilizations as well. Is that something else, going on in there? Or are they making final preparations for everything? The pole shift, everything that's happening right now. Now, you said in channeling, do you remember that you said that it's kind of like it goes inside out?
Oh, I do remember some. Like when the earth is going to turn itself inside out. So that's how she cleanses herself. So like, it's hard to explain, but whatever is inside the earth, she's going to open up. That's going to come up and out, and everything that's on the surface is going to go down. So it's like a folding type action.
Yeah, we were telling David Devine this, and he found it very interesting too, because then he was talking about the same thing about, finding out that there's 2 to 3 times the water inside the earth than there is out on the surface. And, here this is just came out today talking about how plate tectonics play a crucial role in sustaining life on the earth. And it's not necessarily going to be that every single landmass goes under. If we look at what Casey said, there will be spots that are not going under. And the Hopi legends, say that the Four Corners is a safe zone as well. But when you look at it, the plates fit together kind of like puzzle pieces, but we do have some that are subducting, that are going to be no more. They're going under. They're getting brought back in to the mantle and melted away, and there'll be new pieces as well. If we go back and look, like the Atlantic Ocean is getting bigger, so you have these mid-Atlantic ridges. You have areas where basically there's new crust forming all the time. As the Atlantic will continue to get bigger and the Pacific smaller, but there's a lot more going on than that. And I just wonder, what all this is going to look like. How recognizable will it be when the process is over? I mean, like right here, you could see, Florida, when the Ice Age was full in, is like 3-4 times the size it is now. As you could see, like right here, all this basically was all land. The changes, and we might be looking at, some of Atlantis over here with this rise through here, and all we have now is just a sprinkling of islands, but, perhaps there was so much more. And talking about sunken cities, there's a lot of them under the sea that most people are probably not aware of. This is Olos, the sunken city. And now this one was basically submerged because of an earthquake sometime around the 2nd century AD. We of course we have Plato's Atlantis as well. Those legends of Atlantis going under the sea. This is an interesting article too. The moon's magnetosphere used to be twice as strong as the Earth's.
Yeah, it's just all, we're learning all these new things, and then they come around with these sciences saying, oh yeah, by the way, the moon is in our atmosphere, and there's just so many things that we don't understand and we don't know, that we get to learn, well, now, firsthand. So it's really exciting to watch and be a witness to all of this. It makes you wonder, well, what's coming next? As soon as it seems like it can't get any more interesting, something else comes up.
Now, the moon's magnetosphere is petered out, and they think that happened about 1 billion years ago. But at one time, it had twice the magnetosphere. So, maybe there was, who knows? Maybe there was at one time an atmosphere, and maybe there was life on the moon at one time. And maybe now there's nothing but a hollowed out core holding a whole bunch of different alien species as they watch us from above. There's so many, and we touched on the legends too. Of various indigenous people, including some of the original inhabitants of what is now Italy, that say that they remember, their ancestors remember when the moon wasn't here, and the moon was brought here, and actually brought here around the time of the Younger Dryas, perhaps to straighten things out after the cataclysm. And we talked about different types of civilizations when we talk about the Kardashev scale. It's pretty fascinating. Kardashev scale, there it is, which talks about how advanced could different civilizations get. Think about our technology now compared to when and I'm pretty old. I'm on the other side of 50 now. When I was like a little kid, our technology now blows away. I mean, I was all excited over Rock'em Sock'em Robots, if you guys remember that.
Totally.
Do you? Yeah, that was like so cool. Now look at the video games and stuff we have now. I mean, the technology. So can you imagine if we were able to live in peace and evolve peacefully for, say, 1,000 years? Imagine what we could achieve. So, type 1 civilization, also called a planetary civilization, can use and store all the energy available on this planet. Now, we are thought to be at like 0.6 or 0.7. We're not even at type 1 yet. Type 2, also called a stellar civilization, can use and control the energy on the scale of its planetary system. Type 3 civilization, a galactic civilization, control the energy at the scale of its entire host galaxy, even, moving planets at will, moving suns at will, making things like Dyson spheres and harnessing the energy of the sun's, of its sun. And just think about that. Now, what if the Draco are, 10 million years ahead of us, and that not only that, but they know how to change their own vibrational frequency at will to be here, and then they're gone, and then they're back. So it's just pretty wild. So we had talked a little bit about Dwarka, the lost city of Dwarka. And this gets into, the history of ancient India. And I had shared with you before, and I'm going to make a video on Hanuman and on some of the legends of the Ramayana. Very interesting stuff. And then I've touched on it before. So here we're looking at, the city from which Krishna was associated, and it's underwater. It's submerged, as we see just some photos there. How much is underwater? How much is underwater? How much will be underwater? Will there be people that go by and look down and see something? I wonder what that is, and they're looking at the top of a New York City skyscraper, or maybe the Statue of Liberty there, or you have all these different things. It's just pretty wild to think about all this, but there's so much under the oceans. And as you see here, they have, pottery at this location dates back to 3528 BC, seals and inscriptions back to 1500 BC, and it goes way back further than that. It's just fascinating stuff to see and to think about, and the technology that we probably had as well.
I know, it makes me wonder, is this like a really super slow sinking of something? It's a little concerning, to watch. I haven't seen stuff like this happen, so it's curious.
It's part of the changing times. As you see sea level fluctuation off the west coast of India, what could cause this? I mean, can we, realistically, can we lose like whole sections of continents? Well, I mean, look what we just saw. Was that up in Norway or Sweden? That big, huge landslide. Remember, we watched like whole houses just go sliding in. That was pretty scary to watch.
It was very scary to watch. I wouldn't want to be anywhere near there. I wouldn't even want to film it. It was hard to watch.
Yeah, so Dwarka is known as the Atlantic of the Indian Ocean. And really, in the future, we'll do maybe a full video on that, talking about that. And here you have 7 cities and towns that are underwater, and they're absolutely stunning as well. And I think I shared with you guys too, I was watching a video of an Indian temple being dug up, and it was dated to about 1,000 years ago. Yeah, 1,000 years ago. And it's on an area that's, way above sea level, way above sea level. No foreseeable way of how it could have gotten so much sand on top of it, because it was, like 30, 40 feet under the sands. What caused that? What could possibly cause that? Where it's not like around any area where there would be a landslide burying it. Mud flood comes to mind. And mud flood, I mean, does it start because of the geological processes going on inside and liquefying the ground?
That's what it feels like. It feels like that's the truth.
That's scary to think of.
It's very scary to think of, because that means like at any moment you could be standing there and suddenly you're in quicksand pretty much, and you just kind of drop like a hot rock. But there's been a lot of different buildings, dug up, and it shows where the water line was on them, where they were buried up to. And, these buildings, they're not that old. So it makes you wonder, what's happening sooner rather than later?
Yeah, and so what if something like these mud floods happen on a much, much closer interval than we think? It's pretty wild. And when you look at the world's population, just the population of the world, things don't add up to me. They really don't, because, gosh, I could search this too. There's so many things that pop to mind as we're going.
Which is a lot of fun. That's why we do the lives, because certain things come up, and then we can just look at them while we're all here together. Super curious stuff, we're all here to put it together ourselves, which is fun.
So, I mean, if we had 600 million people in the year 1700, and now we have like 7.8 billion people. Okay, so, and yet they're going to knowingly tell us that we had, our first major city-states in, the Fertile Crescent area, maybe 6,000 years ago. Something doesn't add up right. I mean, we went from 600 million people in 1700 to where we are now. I wonder, did we have like a major cataclysm, or multiple ones that we just don't know about, massive ones? Perhaps as little as 400 or 500 years ago, 400 or 500 years ago, not millions of years ago, and not tens of thousands of years ago. The population, they'll tell you, well, it's the Industrial Revolution and this and that. I don't know. I don't buy it. Something feels like it's off to me.
Yeah, I mean, definitely things feel like they're off, and we can just look at what we've been taught in school. And if you go back and comb through the books now and what they told us, nothing is right. I mean, all these tests that we took, whether we passed or failed, doesn't matter. We gave them a lot of energy to learn something that doesn't look very, very true.
Xicheng in China. So here you see beneath the waters of Lake Qiandao in China, there are ruins of cities and towns that used to be part of two regions called Chun'an and Sui'an. The towns were submerged in 1957, so the government built a power plant, in that area. And so, that type of thing happens all the time. When I was living in Columbia, South Carolina, there is Lake Murray, which is beautiful. And there's a town down the bottom of there, because it was just a river that they dammed off. And so that's nothing, that doesn't boggle the mind. Over here, you're talking about a similar situation again, where an area is flooded. But the other ones that we're talking about, like the cities off the coast of India, and, these anomalous structures, like we were also pointing out over here, that just don't appear to be natural. And let's see if I can find it again. There's the island. There it is. Those straight lines, they just defy explanation. At least I think they do. I mean, is this just something Google stuck in there? Or is it really straight line structures? Was there something there? I mean, I could see this as being like a gigantic airport for big motherships coming down. Perhaps maybe part of Lemuria or Mu or something along those lines as well.
Yeah, it could be Lemuria. I feel that energy over here really strong. And they're definitely not going to tell us anything up front that might give us an inkling on what our true history is. Because if we knew where we were, then we'd know where we're going. And we might take control of some stuff. But, the adventure is in the journey anyhow. So it's all good. It's curious.
So Photonia says that those are supposed to be 1 mile high and 2 miles wide.
Wowzer.
Yeah. So, is that something that's... who did that? Was that the giants? Was that the Nephilim? Was that the Draco? Was that, who put that type of structures together? The Titans, perhaps, being so big. And who were the Titans, too? I mean, I had said to you once before, kind of felt like, what if Tiamat was real? What if there was that collision and the asteroid belt is what's left over of Tiamat, and maybe Earth even was formed from Tiamat. Imagine if there were people like on a planet the size of Jupiter, and Jupiter was solid. And, who knows what lies underneath those clouds when you get down to it either. I mean, we're just going on what they tell us. How big would the people be, on a planet the size of Jupiter compared to Earth? Interesting, right? I mean, you just got to wonder about all those things. So, guys, I want to thank you for joining us again. As always, it's always a lot of fun. I want to thank everybody that's supporting us over on Patreon and also on Ko-Fi as well. And anybody that needs any energy work done, any spiritual counseling, a Vedic chart, any sort of reading, let us know. Evolutionary Energy Arts at Proton Mail or Evolutionary Energy Arts. I'm sorry. It's EEARTS at Proton Mail, and it's Evolutionary Energy Arts at Gmail. And there's links on every video as well.
Indeed. Thanks for showing up, you guys.
So, as always, prep. Mentally, spiritually, physically, every way. Be prepared, guys. We love you. God bless and namaste.
Namaste.